Will the Carolina Hurricanes be announcing the Sebastian Aho contract extension soon? We will talk about that and more in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you are listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by the lovely folks over at FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Andrew Schnittker. How are you doing on this Wednesday afternoon, Andrew?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to a lot of stuff to talk about. Like I said yesterday, we are in the thick of it here with the off season.
Yes, we are. And speaking of off-season moves, it came out earlier. I believe it was today. Who'd you say it was? Jeff Merrick on 32 Thoughts, saying that a Sebastian Aho extension should be announced either on or shortly after July 1st. This obviously comes as no surprise, really. We said that this was going to be one of the big things that the Hurricanes had on their agenda for this offseason. And so it's not a surprise at all as far as what the extension will look like. That's going to be the fun one. The Timo Meier extension got announced earlier today with New Jersey. That was 8 years, 8 point something million AAV. I'm not sure what exactly it was there for as far as the salary goes for him. But yeah, we kind of figured this would get announced pretty right around the free agency time. We figured that much.
Yeah, I mean, all indications are that this was the Hurricanes' top priority for this offseason, was getting an extension done with Sebastian Aho as soon as he's eligible for one. I mean, they can obviously agree to it. They just can't make it official until July 1. Yeah, I mean, you heard from everybody involved about it. You heard from Dom Waddell. You heard Tom Dundon. I mean, again, that was the biggest thing for me because at the end of the day, that's the guy who signs the checks. Say, he's going to be here. He's not playing anywhere else. This is his team now. Yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty surprised if it's not an 8-year term. That's the way these kinds of deals for your, home own star players that you get that 8th year when you're re-signing someone with your own team. Let me go ahead and pull up his cap friendly here. I mean, I think he's going to get a modest raise on the contract on his current $8.4 million cap hit from Montreal. But that was the other reason why I never expected this to be a big challenge is say the Hurricanes are going to pay Sebastian Aho $10 million a year on an 8-year deal. That's like a 1.5, 1.6 million raise from what he's making right now. So, once you heard that there was motivation from both sides to get this done, obviously Sebastian wants to be here. He was drafted here. He's grown up as an NHL player here. He's been part of some really special things here with the Hurricanes growing into a consistent playoff team. And he's a competitor. He wants to win here. And I think, locking himself in long-term here is ultimately a vote of confidence from him that the Hurricanes can, get over the hump sooner than later because we've all seen it. I mean, there's few people that are more angry at, after that season-ending loss than that guy.
Yeah, agreed. And you look at extensions they signed the past couple off seasons of Andrei Svechnikov going 8 years. Yes, Jesper Fast getting 8 years. Like they're really locking up who I'm assuming they see as their core guys to these long-term deals. So yeah, 8-year deal, that's pretty much going to be a lock for Sebastian Aho. I'd be surprised if it was anything less than that. And yeah, this is no surprise at all. And like you were saying, when it comes to his cap hit, he's already got a pretty sizable one as is. So when he gets that raise, it's not gonna be too crazy. It's not gonna like he's gonna go from an entry level contract into making 8, 9, 10 million a season. It's not something like that. So yeah, this is no surprise at all for me. As far as what you think he could possibly be making, what do you think we'd be looking at, Andrew?
I think it's going to be somewhere between 9 and 10. I do.
Mhm.
I don't really see the Hurricanes being super comfortable going above that. I don't see Sebastian taking less than 9, given that he's making a shade over 8 now. He's continued to fully establish himself as a number 1 center, a star player, not a superstar, a star. Yeah, I'd say between 9 and 10 on an 8-year deal. And like I said, again, that's a modest cap raise from what he's getting now, something the Hurricanes can certainly fit into their future books, especially as, again, still kind of in that COVID revenue cap freeze right now. It should start to go up again within the next couple of years, so that should help. And I'm going to go ahead and predict. I bet you we see this not long after. Excuse me, had a little bubble there.
You're good.
Not long after free agency opens on Saturday, because you see this a lot of times in the past. Sometimes teams, use an extension that's eligible to be signed as their big July 1 move, because the Hurricanes are a team that's traditionally, even again under Dom Waddell, shied away from making those big splashy signings on July 1. Most of the time, rightfully so. There's some scary deals that get given out that day. So I would not be surprised if a Sebastian Aho extension announcement is kind of the Hurricanes' big thing that we see on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'll be their big move on Saturday. I think, basically, probably shortly after it opens. Heck, maybe as soon as, the clock, hits when it opens up. That could be when, the e-signature or whatever gets hit, goes through. And that's when the tweets, the Facebook posts, the Instagram, the Snapchat search, all that announcing, and then of course the press release, all that stuff. I think probably within 5 minutes of it opening up is when it's going to be announced, and yeah, I think that's going to be their big splash. I mean, if they can make other big splashes that will benefit the team and not be like those scary deals that we see get handed out on July 1 sometimes, then go for it. I'm fine with that, but yeah, I definitely see that being their big off-season move. Obviously they're gonna do something with a goalie. We've said many times that we feel probably Frederik Andersen coming back. As far as what that deal ends up looking like, who knows? We haven't really heard anything from anyone on that. It's just kind of been mine and your speculation as far as what we could potentially see there. But I think that could be something we see on July 1 as well. What do you think?
See an Aho extension?
No, Frederik Andersen extension.
I would think that would probably get done before July 1, just because the Hurricanes probably don't want to risk him getting to the market where other teams can talk to him, and then you're in a pretty good bind with your goalie situation if that happens. I think, because there's not a ton of great options out there. So no, I would think even within like the next, what's today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I could see that one happening within the next couple of days here, if that's something that they want to do. It's possible that it happens, or could be one of those that we see, a lot of times you see teams re-sign their own free agents at the 11th hour on July 1. And I think that could, that's something that we could see with the, like the Hurricanes signed Frederik Andersen at like 10 a.m. on Saturday. Free agency opens at noon.
Yeah, I could totally see it, and we'll obviously continue to talk about that. Whether it be Sebastian Aho, Frederik Andersen, Antti Ranta, all the other Hurricanes free agents that could potentially still be sticking around. Obviously, Aho still would have another year regardless, but we will continue to talk about that as the week progresses, and we will dive into the schedule release. A quick overview of that right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, MLB season is underway. You've seen myself and Andrew wearing a ton of baseball shirts as of late, mourning our crappy baseball teams. And if you want to take your first swing betting on MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's 200. You can spend betting everything from the money line to the over under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on the MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started and get up to $200 in bonus bets. My brain turned to mashed potatoes there. That's fanduel.com/locked on to get up to $200. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Now, looking at the schedule release for the Hurricanes that came out yesterday afternoon, we're going to do a whole episode dedicated to breaking down the schedule, stretches that look easy, stretches that look hard, extended road trips, all of that stuff. We're going to do a full episode on that, but just a quick overview of it. The home opener is on October 11th with the Hurricanes facing the Ottawa Senators, and that is going to be a fun game. And yes, it is October 11th. It's a Wednesday, middle of the week, again taking on the Ottawa Senators. And actually, one thing we hadn't done yet, I have the whole thing here in front of me now. We had not talked about the preseason as well. That starts on September 26th with the Hurricanes having a back-to-back taking on Tampa Bay and Florida, then going down to Florida, to Tampa Bay, excuse me, I have to specify there, to take on the Lightning on September 29th. And then they are then going to Nashville on October 5th, and then taking on Nashville at home on October 6th. That's the preseason. Regular season kicks off October 11th against Ottawa. And then shortly after that, they got a road trip out on the West Coast. That's obviously going to coincide with the North Carolina State Fair, as it does every year. But what were your quick thoughts on the schedule this year, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean it's fairly typical run of the mill schedule. It's pretty common these days to see the Hurricanes squeeze one home game in, maybe two before the State Fair, then head out on a big Western swing in early October. I think that often helps, especially now that you've got like good players. So playing a bunch of road games isn't a big deal. Getting on the road like that helps the group gel together early. Doesn't help a ton with all of our sleep schedules with some, Canes After Dark right off the hop in October, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, let me see here. So November and January are the 2 months that, if you're a Canes fan looking to go to a lot of games, those are going to be fun months for you. Pretty home heavy months. They've got a 5-game homestand in November. They've got a another 5-game homestand in January. January, they only play 3 games on the road. Most of them are at home. So those are spots in the schedule that you look at, of opportunities for the Hurricanes to really make some hay, bank some points, enjoy some home cooking. And, obviously they're going to be fighting for another Metro Division title again, which is going to be, interesting because good player after good player seems to be winding up in the Metro this week. Tyler Toffoli goes to the Devils yesterday. While we are recording this, the Pittsburgh Penguins have acquired Riley Smith from the Vegas Golden Knights. So, yeah, Jared was unsure of that. I'm like, for reference, my little snafu with the Frederick Anderson thing, I am keeping one eye on Twitter while Jared and I are recording this because this is the day of the draft. We see tons of trades. I am making sure something major does not break while we are doing this.
Yeah, and yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, Timo Meyer getting locked up long term in New Jersey as well. New Jersey's just loading up, and they're going to be a really scary team next year. And the first time we play New Jersey will be, oh man, geez, I'm down to December now. I still haven't came across.
It's so weird. Like every year I look, like I think last year, I think they didn't play like the Penguins until the new year or something like that. Like there's always something weird in terms of like
Yeah, it looks
not
like
playing one of the divisional teams at all in the first half and then playing them like 3 times in a month in the second half or something like that.
unless I am just blind and overlooking it, it looks like the first time the Hurricanes will play the Devils will be on January 25th at home. And that is the second half of a back-to-back. They were playing Boston on January 24th in Boston. So that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a tough little back-to-back there.
Yeah, you're right. They don't because they play them. They play the Devils once each in January, February, March, April. So if it's the Hurricane, or no, excuse me, I think they play them twice in March. So if it's the Hurricanes and Devils fighting for the top of the division again, going to be some very big head-to-head matchups in that second half of the season.
Yes, for sure. It's going to be, yeah, that second half of the season when they start, really fighting with New Jersey for that Metro title. That's going to be some tough games there for sure. And one thing, we'll again talk about this more in depth, is they aren't as heavy on the back-to-backs this year, which will be nice. For the Hurricanes, they have a lot of weekday games as well. And this is going to be a fun season for sure. Final home game before we move on will be on April 7th against the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's going to be a matinee game at 5 p.m. And then the Hurricanes also closing out the regular season as a whole against the Columbus Blue Jackets on April 16th up there in Columbus. So, yeah, again, we will do a full in-depth breakdown of this schedule, dates that we have circled on the calendar for games that we're looking forward to the most. We'll do that in a future episode later on in the week, so make sure you're tuned in for that. And as Andrew said, the draft is tonight, and we'll be giving our final draft night predictions right after this quick break, folks. All right, folks, we are back, and it is time to give our final draft day predictions. And it's not a whole lot going on with the Hurricanes in terms of the draft, in terms of speculation of who are they gonna draft, are they gonna trade the pick, blah blah blah. Really just not a whole lot coming out of the Hurricanes camp, even with rumors. There's just nothing. It's very quiet on the Hurricanes front tonight. And we talked about it with Matt earlier in the week, or over the weekend, excuse me, as far as what we think they could potentially be doing. I still think that we could potentially see them trade out of that number 30 pick. As you've said multiple times, Andrew, that's a pick that really doesn't carry a whole lot of weight. but it is still a first rounder, so it could be nice to have in a package deal for a player and some assets. But ultimately, I see them probably trading the pick.
Yeah, I think that you are right. I think they'll either trade the pick for, as part of a package for some NHL help. Because here's the interesting thing. We talked about that pick not holding a lot of value, but what we're seeing these past couple of days, it seems to be at least a little bit of a buyer's market, especially when it comes to forwards, with a year left on their deal, which is something that could be appealing to the Hurricanes with all the extensions they have coming up. I mean, like I said, Tyler Toffoli goes to the Devils for an RFA, the RFA rights to Yegor Sharangovich, I think is his name, a bottom six forward and a third round pick. Riley Smith goes to the Penguins for a third round pick. I mean, these are guys, both making $5 million or less against the cap. Riley Smith scored 26 goals last year. Tyler Toffoli had a career season, over 30 goals, over 70 points. So, I mean, seems like there are deals to be had out there if you're a team, looking for a win, especially a winger. I mean, this is. I look at both of those deals and I'm like, if I'm the Hurricanes, I would have paid that. I would have exceeded that, frankly. I mean, for either of those players. So some of the guys that maybe they make a move tonight or tomorrow for one of the guys we discussed. Calgary seems to be open for business. Maybe it's time for that Elias Lindholm trade. Maybe somebody like Victor Arvidsson with the Kings. They just added Pierre-Luc Dubois on a huge contract. They might need to be moving some money out. Hurricanes have cap space. They have draft picks. I'm really looking for them to make some sort of a significant addition at forward over the next couple days, unless they plan on doing so in free agency, which, again, how the Hurricanes have operated, that would be a bit of a departure. They've tended to make their big offseason moves on the trade market rather than in free agency.
Yeah, I agree. I was literally going to mention that potential reunion with Elias Lindholm because he's, now that Toffoli's been moved, well, even before that, Lindholm kind of was the big name there of like, where's he going to go? All that stuff, because he's obviously not going to re-sign with Calgary. So, yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they do. And as I was saying that, Andrew made a message here in our little recording chat room that he has some new Canes updates to pass along. So what do you got for us, Andrew?
Nothing major. Actually, something, unfortunately, that might signal a potential departure of a fan favorite. This is from Andy Strickland of Bally Sports Midwest, covers the St. Louis Blues. He covers the Blues, but he's had a number of Hurricane scoops, it seems, in the past few years. So this is Jesper Fast is an intriguing UFA to a number of teams, eyeing a 3 or 4 year deal. He has been a very popular player on every team he's played on. I don't know if I see the Hurricanes wanting to go 3 or 4 years with Jesper Fast. He's coming off a 3-year deal that they signed him to on the open market. So if the money is reasonable, it's possible. But I don't know. It's sounding like, almost what I was afraid of with him, that his playoff performance might drive up his demand a little bit, and somebody might be willing to pay a price that the Hurricanes, with where the Hurricanes are about to get to with all of these guys like Aho, Slavin, Pesce, Shea taking up a bigger percentage of the cap, you've got to be careful. You can't spend a ton on, your bottom six wingers. This is, and it's interesting because this is where, I know a lot of, some people may think, oh, well, we aren't going to see these players for a few years. The draft's not that interesting. In order to keep winning when you get to a point like the Hurricanes are going to get to, you have to draft well, because you have to be able to cycle through contributors throughout your roster to give you depth on entry-level contracts when you have the rest of your guys making that big money. Look at the Penguins when they won their cups in, I think, 2016 and 17. They had a bunch of guys doing that. So I'd say based on that update, I don't feel awesome about the Hurricanes bringing back Jesper Fast.
Yeah, I agree there. And it's going to suck, if he does go. But like you said, his playoff performance really driving up his value. That's not surprising at all, really. You see that, regardless of the sport. You see it in hockey, you see it in football, basketball, baseball. A guy goes off in the playoffs, hits the free agent market, and then, their value, just goes up even more than it already would have been. So I'm not surprised at that. It is going to suck if they don't get a deal done because, like you said, he is a fan favorite, extremely popular in the locker room, and he does produce for the Hurricanes. It's not like, he's a guy that everyone likes that, doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. He's, a guy that really, benefits the team, and he's going to benefit whatever team he's on, whether it's the Hurricanes like we want, whether it's the St. Louis Blues or whoever, he's going to benefit whatever team he's on. That's a guarantee for sure. So we'll obviously continue to talk about that as time rolls on, as more info comes out on that. But if he does walk, that does definitely open up, for more guys, that could potentially, want a bigger role on the team. Like obviously, he's not he's a center, not a winger, but Jack Drury, a guy that's wanting to do more, had already requested a trade. All right, you got some of these guys moving out, maybe that does more for him. Maybe he can start playing on the wing some. I believe he did some this season. I don't remember exactly, but if he could, figure that out. We've seen guys switch. Sebastian Aho, he was drafted as a winger. Now he's the Hurricanes' #1 center. It's not unheard of, for a guy, to go from a wing to center to a wing. It's not unheard of. So maybe that could open up the door for him if the Hurricanes don't do something in terms of a trade, in terms of free agent signing. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Hurricanes fill a Jesper Fast sized hole. And if they do know that, all right, this isn't going to get done, he's going to walk on Saturday, then, like we said, teams make a lot of moves on draft night. Maybe it's the night when they do it. Whether it be a Lindholm trade or more of a depth trade, to fill up, Jesper Fast if they don't feel confident in, say moving Drury over or whatever, So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I could see, the especially with, like I said, kind of the dirt cheap prices on adding forwards. If there's a guy we're not really thinking about out there who's a nice, two-way bottom six winger who could fill in some of what Jesper Fast brought to the table, that's definitely the sort of move I could see the Hurricanes making. That's the sort of move they've liked to make. They find value, don't have to give up a lot. So yeah, no, I could certainly see something like that happening.
Yeah, they definitely play the money ball strategy for
Yeah.
sure. And I could totally see that in play tonight, tomorrow, and just throughout, really the rest of the off season. But especially over this half of the week from tonight onward through the weekend. I definitely see them, doing their money ball thing or money puck, I guess. But
Well, and this front office is usually good for a big I mean, they could bring in a big name we haven't even heard of or mentioned. I mean, this front office is usually good for a big surprise or two. I mean, remember Brent Burns and Max Pacioretty on the same day last summer? Remember Vincent Trocheck? That was out at left
mhm.
field. That was a trade deadline move. Remember, I mean, their first year of this regime, I was, my jaw was on the floor when they traded Elias Lindholm and Noah Hannafin for Dougie Hamilton. So it's going to be interesting to see, because the Hurricanes, I think, have a group where, the right, significant addition, I think, really could help push them over the hump. And, if such a move is going to happen, good chance we're going to see it in the next week or so. So it's an interesting time to be a Hurricanes fan. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And we will continue to talk about all of the moves that they end up making, as well as tonight's draft, in the coming days, in the coming episodes. Again, we will be doing an episode breaking down the entirety of the Hurricanes schedule. Tough stretches, easy stretches, games we're looking forward to. We'll do that in a future episode as well. So make sure you are following Locked On Hurricanes at LO_Hurricanes on Twitter. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96 and following Andrew on Twitter at ASchnitt53. And as always, folks, enjoy the draft tonight and let's go Canes.